we have a certain number of people who were found, and we know their age approximately, we know their height approximately, we know what race they are usually, and what sex or gender they are, but we don't know who to compare them to. And the reason I say that is a lot of these cases, especially if they come from the late 60s, early 70s, or even sometime in the 80s, police work was done very differently back then. So you have a lot of people who would have missing relatives, and they would go to the police department, and the police would say, oh, were they an adult when they went missing? Well, there's nothing I can do for you. You know, I'm sure they'll turn up. They didn't necessarily make missing persons reports the same way that we do now. So I always tell people, if you know someone who's been missing for however long, they haven't come to any holidays, no one's heard from them in this long, or if you know of someone who has someone like that in their family, make sure there's a missing persons report. It doesn't matter if the person hasn't been seen in 10, 15, 20 years. If you go to the police department and you tell them this person hasn't been seen in 10, 20, 30 years and no one has a missing persons report on them, they'll be very understanding, and they'll at least get the ball rolling and maybe get some identification to some of the people that we have just kind of sitting and waiting for comparison. I'm sure there's thousands of people just in any given state, not just Georgia, that are just there. I mean, the human body, once all the skin is gone, it just can be put in a box about this big and this wide, or put in a pauper's grave, and there they sit until you can find somebody to compare them to. If you have a family member or something that's been missing for a lot of years, go ahead and get your DNA put in CODIS. Maybe there's someone who's been deceased, and maybe, people are very transient. Someone could have gone missing from Georgia and their bones somehow ended up in Arizona, and that's not uncommon. It happens all the time. You take your missing persons reports and unidentified remains and try to compare the race, the age, the approximate time found, the height, and those types of things. And so you have people who are kind of like armchair detectives, and that's what they do as a hobby. They just try to connect people here and there. And there's probably no telling how many people have actually been identified through those means. But if we all were a little more aware of who's actually missing, and being able to put those missing persons together with these unidentified remains, I'm sure it would be a great help, because these people are just waiting. It's like their bones are crying from the grave, and all the while they're sitting here, waiting for their chance to find their way home. And you have on the other side of the equation their family waiting for them to come home, but not knowing quite where to turn or where to look.